thought Waziri was a bit tall. All right. So let us pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you've been pleased to call to the performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor, glory, and advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests have committed to our charge. Amen. So I want us to introduce ourselves. My name is Engineer Kawaya Vincent, MP, Mwala, and the chairperson of the Energy Committee. I want to request members to introduce yourselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cecilia Asinye-Ngitit, the County MP for Turkana, a member of this committee. Thank you.
Good morning, Elisha Odhiambo, the MP for Game, and a member of this committee.
Tom Odege, MP Nyatike, and a member of the committee.
Charles Gimothe, MP, member of Hamisi constituency, member of the committee.
Victor Koech, Chepalongo, member of parliament.
Okay, Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Adam Kindicha. I'm the clerk to the committee.
Salim Athman, clerk assistant to the committee.
Thank you, Chair and honorable members. My name is Brian Jeru, fiscal analyst.
Chair, my name is Mercy Mayende. I'm the Media Relations Officer for this committee.
Brigitte Matli, Legal Counsel to the committee.
Is one member who has not introduced himself. Yes.
My name is Commander Mwafrika, member of parliament for Isambu, and a member of this committee.
Waziri and your team.
Thank you, Chair and honorable members. My name is Davis Chirchir, Cabinet Secretary, Energy and Petroleum.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mohamed Liban, PS Petroleum.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. My name is Daniel Kipto Bargoria. I'm the Director General of the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. My name is Engineer Peter Njenga, MD and CEO, KenGen.
Good morning, Chair and members. My name is Paul Ngugi, MD and CEO, Jodhamo Development Company.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. I am Joseph Siror, Managing Director and CEO of Kenya Plan Lighting. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. My name is John Mativo, Managing Director, KETRACO.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Mbogwa Kabiro. I work with the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum.
Good morning, Chair and members. My name is David Chengo, MD and CEO's office, KPNC. Thank
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Engineer Charles Moura, General Manager, Network Management, Kenya Power.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. My name is Michael Kirui, Minister of Energy and Petroleum.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and members. My name is Mohamed Birik, Secretary of Administration, State Department for Petroleum.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. I'm Engineer Julius Odumbe, General Manager Operations, KENGEN.
Good morning, members and Chair. My name is Caroline Kimathi. I'm the Renewable Energy Manager at EPRA.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. My name is Engineer Tom Smeyu, Manager Power System, EPRA.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. My name is Engineer David Mutito, General Manager, Operations, KETRACO.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. I'm Zakaria Somo with the State Department of Petroleum. Thank you very much. So, Waziri and your team, once again, welcome to this.
In Lake Turkana, 270, and what we lost, that totals to 477 megawatts. Accountability for the nationwide power outage. Transient fault, Chair, which I've said there was a transient fault, are not an unusual occurrence in any power system. When they occur, their severity and status of the system resilience influence how the system recovers. The Kenyan electricity grid is operating suboptimally with limited spinning reserves. We did talk about what spinning reserves is, and we can explain that much more. Low inertia, high proportion of intermittent generation because of the intermittent wind and solar, low hydro generation, and insufficient voltage control. This condition makes the system vulnerable to system disturbance. From the foregoing, it is thus not possible to apportion culpability of the cause of the nationwide power outage to any individual person or entity. However, the Ministry is fully aware of the various mitigation measures needed to address the system vulnerability as outlined in the table that we've highlighted under D. A breakdown of measures being instituted to address the concern in the long run and in the short term too. The Ministry is continuously monitoring the generation situation in the country and in light of the least cost power development plan, ensuring that the generation condition of the country is sufficient as it is now. The mitigation measures in place are outlined on that table below, which brings out the challenge and the proposed solution as we undertake as a ministry. In respect to diminishing spinning reserves in the system due to influx of intermittent power plants, when, for example, solar is generating and there's a sudden cloud and the generation drops, how do we have sufficient spinning to take over and support the intermittent caused by that cloud and the drop of generation from that solar? KENGEN is exploring replacing of existing hydro turbines running with modern ones that have capability of bigger operating range. This will address the need for spinning reserves in the short term. However, it shall require funding to actualize in all major hydro plants. We can talk about whether KenGen makes revenue from spinning, which they don't to date. The second one is poor hydrology. In Masinga, levels is still very low, and hydro generation cannot be fully dispatched, affecting the spinning reserve. And what is KenGen doing about this? We're currently carrying out a study on raising Masinga Dam so that we can hold more water and therefore have higher capacity. There is also lack of enough plants to provide auxiliary services, inertia, resilience, limiting absorption of renewable power plants, which we do appreciate, do present fairly a challenge with respect to intermittence. And on this, KenGen is seeking government support in implementation of high Grand Falls. High Grand Falls can generate between 600 and 700 megawatts. Aror, Kimwarer in the North Rift, Magwakwa hydropower in West Hub to support frequency regulation and baseload. And equally, development of of all the small hydro projects under feed-in tariffs on a priority basis. A number of them are ready for signing off because the concessioners have worked on them for quite a while, but because of the current moratorium, we have that challenge. The impact of the moratorium on signing of PPAs on the economy needs to be lifted in order to forestall shortfall of generation capacity required to meet the growing demand and to replace retiring power plants in the medium term. The detailed mitigation measures for the grid stability for the sector are also annexed, Chair. And in respect to, we have that, and I'll ask one of our senior engineers, Mativo, to do some presentation later on. The status of staff morale at Kenya Power and Lighting Company, in light of allegations that the frequent power failures and the apparent slow responses could be directly linked to low morale, especially among technicians and other junior staff at the company. And Chair, we've done some work, we've done some survey, and we did go back to our data. And what do we have to say about this? Staff morale in the company is at acceptable levels. Operational staff, such as technicians and other low cadre of staff, are regularly facilitated, supervised, and adequately compensated as they deal with incidences of power failure or other operational emergencies. In the last 1 year, the terms of service for these employees on short-term contracts were translated to be similar to those of staff on permanent terms. In addition, the company is recognizing best performance and celebrating best regions and counties, which reinforces positive morale. This is in addition to being given opportunities for development and career advancement, as well as promoting employee wellness through various programs and initiatives. A recent staff survey also indicated that overall employee satisfaction and engagement indices have moved from a previous 56% and 52% respectively to stand at 60% and 62% for those, and that survey was, advice was done. It wasn't quite a survey; it was a full questionnaire to every employee, and those are the numbers, which shows an improvement in trends from the previous years. Honourable members, the company continually reviews performance of staff to ensure there is focused engagement by all in order to ensure growing customer satisfaction for long-term sustainability of the company. On actions taken so far by the company, by the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, on possible breaches of contract negligence arising from the outage of power under the various power purchase agreements, I will allow the Director, EPRA, to respond to that. But before we do that, let me respond to the other two areas. As regarding the status of G2G, arrangements of fuel importation and its performance. Maybe, Chair, let me propose that we finish first with the EPRA, because that really deals more importantly to the concern of the national outage. So, DG Kipto, EPRA, can you assist me to answer that? Actions taken so far by Energy and Regulatory Authority on any possible breaches of contract or negligence arising from the outage by any of the power plants under various power purchase agreements. Thank you.
Thank you, Waziri. Chair and honorable members, with your permission, we as the independent regulator have been able to prepare a brief. I don't know whether the clerk can confirm that that brief is with members, so then I can take them through. Thank you. At page 2 of our brief, I will just start with a brief introduction. And the Cabinet Secretary has already spoken to this in terms of the blackout that occurred at 21:45 hours on the 25th of August 2023, where we did as a country experience a national blackout. Chair and honorable members, I wish to state that Section 214 of the Energy Act and Condition 15 of the generation license and the transmission licenses that we as the regulator have issued to the generation and transmission licensees require that our licensees do notify the authority of any accidents or incidents that occurs in the course of operations. Chair and honorable members, on the 31st of August 2023, we as an authority did write to the Kenya Power and Lighting Company, our transmission company as well, the Kenya Electricity Transmission Company, Kenya Electricity Generation Company, KenGen, and Lake Turkana Wind Power Plant to submit detailed reports with respect to the national blackout and in relation also to the undertakings. I wish to report that we did receive these reports on the 8th of September 2023, and this forms the basis of the analysis that is before you, Chair and honorable members. We have annexed to this brief an analysis in annexes 1 to 4. Chair and members, with respect to the Joint Technical Committee report that was put together by a joint sector team of Kenya Power, KETRACO, and KenGen, the joint technical report stated that the system demand at the time of the occurrence was 1855 megawatts with the foregoing generation mix.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes, please.
Is whatever being read by the Director General different from what Waziri has just presented? Or we are going to be repeating ourselves, Chair? I thought Waziri was giving us a summary.
Yeah, I am also interested. You know, if there is any material difference.
Let me, Chair, we've done our work as a ministry, and the regulator, as an independent body, has done their independent work to corroborate and confirm with a view to invoking and employing the instruments of the PPA to an extent that if there is a need to indict a company, they have the independent data as submitted by the entities Kenya Power, Lake Turkana, and the transmission company. So just for the interest of time, DG, Director General, maybe we can save time where you are narrating the same, where the information that has been submitted to the ministry is the same as info submitted to the directorate or the regulatory body. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think you just omit what has been presented. Just go to the...
I am guided, Chair.
Yeah.
I am guided, Chair. So I will then move on, Chair. In terms of the sequence of events that are captured in on page 3 from item number 9 and the sequence of events, this is similar as per the joint report as presented by the Cabinet Secretary. This is also captured in page 4 and 5. I will just highlight a couple of issues. One is at page 6, this is the Lake Turkana Wind Power Report, at number 16, where it is stated that the fault was initiated by a voltage dip on the Loyangalani-Suswa 220 kV transmission line. On the detection of the outage voltage dip, Lake Turkana Wind Power DRPC STATCOM started to support the grid by increasing reactive power output. The output of the STATCOMs increased from 10 MVR to 100 MVR. The STATCOMs have set limits.
Is that page on your document or no? CS's document?
That is page 6, Chair.
Of your document?
Of the document that is before you.
You know, many documents are before us.
This is the report of the...
For you are doing,
yes,
yeah,
the
because
report
you
of
also referred
EPRA.
to CS's document. Thanks.
Chair, I think it was important that I highlight this because this is the position as put to us as the regulator by Electricana Wind Power at item number 16, where Electricana are of the view that the STATCOMs have set limits which, if exceeded, will lead to a trip. The plant and substation configuration is as shown. I will not go into that. The point I wanted to make there is, as according to Electricana, the fault was initiated by a voltage dip on the Loyangalani-Suswa 220 kV transmission line. Chair, I will move on to page number 8, which is our authorities analysis. 19. The Joint Technical Report concludes that the tripping of the Electricana wind generation plant after an alleged severe voltage dip was possibly caused by the three-phase fault at the 220 66 kV at the river substation at 21:45 09.277 hours. This is the relay time, which triggered a rise in the system voltages at Loyangalani. This led to the voltage tripping of Electricana wind power plant, which affected the stability of the grid. Chair, in the interest of time, I will leave it at that. I will skip the waveforms and move on, Chair, to the question that you have put before us. Chair, I will move on to page 12, and I will want to highlight the sections of the grid code. This is at item 22 of our report, which states that at section 7.2.3.1 of the Kenya National Transmission Grid Code 2021 provides fault ride through the requirements of variable renewable energy power plants. This includes a VRPP shall remain connected to the Kenya National Transmission System for voltage disturbances on all or any of the phases where the system voltage measured in HV terminals of the connection transformer remains above the specified level for a specified length of time. Chair, if you look to the next page at 23, the analysis of the generation trip sequence established that other generation plants, including Olkaria 5 and Thika Power, tripped over 755 milliseconds, violating the fault ride and the requirements of the grid code. The generation trip sequence we have been able to provide. Chair, the point I want to make there is that we do have a grid code, and the grid code requires generating plants to be able to ride out an incident or a fault that occurs within a system disturbance. Lake Turkana wind power plant were not able to then comply with the provisions of the grid code in terms of riding out that system disturbance, but not singling out Lake Turkana. This is also noted with other generators as well. Chair, honourable members, moving on to the specific questions that you have asked, what actions we have taken. This is page 16 and 17 of the report that is before you. I will start with page 16 at number 33. Maybe 32, where we are stating as a regulator that Career 5 and All Power, which created an additional deficit in addition to the 270 megawatts of an additional 200, which made 200 megawatts, which made the system very unstable. Chair and honourable members, due to the under-frequency load shedding operated but was not sufficient to arrest the frequency dip due to now a loss of a cumulative 477 megawatts of generation. At the time, Chair and honourable members, we did only have a spinning reserve of 66 megawatts against a projected spinning reserve of 109 megawatts to compensate for the loss of generation. That further exacerbated the situation that was at hand, Chair and honourable members. Chair, moving on to number 17, these are the actions and the specific question that has been asked of us as the regulator, the actions that we've taken so far as the regulator and the possible breaches of contracts and negligence arising out of the outage of several power plants and our various PPAs, power purchase agreements. Chair, I've already stated that we did write on the 31st of August to our licensees to provide for us detailed reports. We did receive these reports on the 8th of September, and we have analysed them, and this is a preliminary report which we are tabling before this Honourable House. As per Chair, Section 166 of the Energy Act, we are analysing that data and the impact that this blackout had to the Kenyan economy and the action that we shall be taking in terms of regulatory action on the culpable licensees in accordance with the provisions of the PP and the Grid Code. Chair and honourable members, I wish to state that our position as the regulator, that we may be able to take regulatory action that may not be limited to one of the following. The first would be one of a monetary nature, which could include clawback of revenue requirements on the basis of the impact of the blackout, and this will be determined once we are able then to establish the root cause of this incident. On average, on the day, we did lose power as an economy for about 19 hours and 22 minutes. This is on average about 37,000 megawatt hours consumption on a daily basis. Further, in addition to that monetary clawback that which is available to us to employ, Section 11A of the Energy Act also empowers us as the authority to issue, renew, modify, suspend, or revoke licenses and permits for all undertakings and activities in the energy sector. In this regard, we wish to confirm to you, Chair and honourable members, that we will not hesitate as an authority to take the appropriate action once the investigations into this incident are concluded and culpable licensees also identified. Chair and honourable members, in addition, the provisions of Section 126B of the Energy Act gives us as an authority the power to suspend and revoke licenses where we are satisfied that a licensee either willfully or negligently did not operate in accordance with the terms and conditions of their license, the provisions of this Energy Act or regulations that have been made thereunder. I wish to confirm to this Honourable House that the authority is investigating any breach of the license conditions, including the grid code, before determining the appropriate actions against the liable entities. Chair, I just want to issue a rider, and this is captured in 44, that the enforcement and regulatory actions that I've spoken to previously shall only be undertaken in accordance with the rule of law, having following due process, including issuance of notices to show cause, once culpability has been conclusively determined. Chair and honourable members, from a perspective of the regulator, some of the areas, and the Cabinet Secretary has already spoken to this, where we as a regulator are making certain recommendations and interventions. One is for the system operator. Currently, that function is being undertaken by KPLC to get to the bottom and conclusively establish the root cause of the initial system disturbance and to come up with clear mitigation measures to ensure there is no reoccurrence of the same. This is the mandate and the function of the system operator. Second, we are asking as a regulator that our licensees, this is the generator Electricana Wind Power Plant, KETRACO, KPLC, and the other generators to jointly reconcile the protection grading of Electricana Wind Power Plant in accordance with the grid code and the system requirements. The system operator as well should liaise with other generators to reconcile the generator operation range and protection settings in line with the grid code. Chair and honourable members, our other recommendation is that KPLC should relinquish the system operation functions to KETRACO immediately in order to comply with the requirements of the Energy Act and the designation of KETRACO as a system operator by us as the regulator, which happened in December 2021, but is yet to be effected. We also of the view that the transmission system operator should carry out a Kenya electricity system study to take care of the changes in the interconnected power system since the last study, which was conducted in 2012, to identify system operational gaps and constraints. Further, Chair and honourable members, the transmission system operator to relook at the under-frequency load shedding settings as well, and the Kenya Transmission Electricity Company, KETRACO, to expedite the repair of the damaged towers of the Lungailani-Suswa line and restore the double-circuit operation of the line. KETRACO should also consider operating the line at the designated voltage of 400 kV. Further, Chair and honourable members, we are of the view that KETRACO should expedite the completion of the pending transmission projects meant to improve power evacuation, reliability and flexibility. Chair and honourable members, from a security of supply standpoint, it is the regulator's view that we need to fast-track the development of new generation capacity as envisaged in the Least Cost Power Development Plan 2022-2041. We, as the regulator, also have been able to conduct a study called the Auxiliary Services Study that looks to shoring up and strengthening our grid. We, as the regulator, are committing that we'll be able to implement the recommendations of that Auxiliary Services report with your support. We also, as a regulator, are committing to scale up the frequency and the level of detail of the technical audits of all our licensees to ensure that they comply, one, with their licensing conditions, two, with the provisions of the grid code, the Act and the attendant regulations to ensure that similar occurrences do not occur in the future. Lastly, Chair and honourable members, we shall also commit, once we have conclusively concluded these investigations, to ensure that culpability and enforcement and regulatory action is taken in accordance with the rule of law and that the recommendations of the sector, as led by the Cabinet Secretary, are implemented to ensure that we improve and shore up our system. Chair, I submit.
Right, thank you. I kind of like your document. All right, now let's get to analyze these two versions. So, Waziri and your team, okay, you have tried to zoom in to the person responsible. Of course, not exactly. When we thought you would come with an envelope, and they say, and the winner is, you mentioned. I started looking at this document from Kenya Power. And the people who are not serious, this is what they do. They make it so difficult for you to read within the very short time. This document is just too big to, and when I looked at it, this document was talking about JKI largely, and the procurement, it's more of a procurement document than a response to national blackout. But at least we are making progress. Now we have moved to two people, like Turkana and Kenya Power. At least there is progress. Now we can do better to know exactly the two, which is good progress. According to the document, Waziri, at 21:45:09.187 hours, 25th August 2023, the first event occurred at Lake Turkana, which is the tripping of the dynamic reactive power compensation. Then the second point says, from further analysis of the data, it has been established that there was a voltage system, voltage dip. Now, number 3, the voltage dip occurred simultaneously with transient fault on 66 kV EPZ and Savannah feeders emanating from 220/66 kV at the river substation. You know, now the devil is in the detail. This first event at Lake Turkana and this voltage dip, at least we should have also the time, because it can't be exact at the same millisecond. We understand two things are possible. The voltage dip or the fault maybe at the substation can be a cause to the first trip, or the first trip can be the cause to the voltage dip because it's an elimination of substantial amount of generation. So now, unless now we get to this missing detail of this voltage dip, what time it occurred, then we are only left with the Kenya Power and Lake Turkana. But if we can get the timings, then it becomes a little easier for us to be able to know who among the two. Because where we sit now, I think Lake Turkana is saying that their first trip was because of the overvoltage. And I'm sure from Kenya Power they would say the overvoltage is because of the first trip by Lake Turkana. Unless otherwise, because this is how these documents have been presented. And so this document is excellent. Only if we can, Waziri, you can try as much as possible to eliminate the point where you said you cannot, there's nobody to blame. Because it went very well, except that point. Because already we have identified a number of people who have who we think now are responsible for this. When I marry with the regulator, Again, a fairly comprehensive document which almost names Lake Turkana, but then brings Kenya Power close so that it doesn't appear that one person was responsible. So, gentlemen, I think it is only fair we establish the root cause. Because if we try to hide or to protect any of the institutions, then this thing can reoccur again. When I look at the demand at that particular point in time, 1855 megawatts, with our installed capacity of, I think, 3,000 or so, then it also worries me a lot, because there's a school of thought out there that the problem is the moratorium. And we understand that at some point the moratorium must be lifted. But when I looked at look at the demand at that particular point in time when we got these problems, the demand is way, way low than our installed capacity. So as I give members to ventilate on this particular matter, Waziri, unless maybe then we can be able to get a little bit further details on the two organizations, Kenya Power and Lake Turkana, would be recommending we open an inquiry so that we can zoom to these individuals directly. In any case, the way I want us to prosecute matters here, I think it is totally unfair for this committee to be asking the CS to respond on matters of Kenya Power when Kenya Power are there in office. We need to get to a point where if we have a particular saga that has something to respond to, then you appear and respond, not eat up the possible available political goodwill that the CS might have in the store, because really everybody must be held accountable directly. I find it unnecessary that we have every other time, to even on technical matters, to ask the CS to come and appear before us, and then we end up roasting him. Probably, maybe he didn't sleep that night, he was working on other issues. So us going an inquiry way means that we zoom in and we have interest on specific sagas, then you can appear before us directly. We will ask you directly because you are the ones running that organization. When now there are other policy matters that are necessary, then at that point, then the CS can appear. Then otherwise, we will end up protecting sagas without knowing. And at the same time, those who are protecting these sagas, they also end up consuming their own available fuel. I will start with Mawade.
Thank you. First, I'll introduce myself. My name is Mawade, Musili Mawade. I had not done the introduction. Second, as we sit here, the reason I walked in late is I have a burning issue within my constituency in Mukuru Koruben ward, and I pray that the CEO, since I've communicated with you, that you'll find a way so that as we come to the second round of questions, you'll have sorted that matter. There is no way we'll just sit here and every day people are carrying transformers only because somebody else, there's a higher bidder somewhere else. And we will table the documents to you of issues to do with the removal of meters, because there's a bigger fish somewhere that needs a meter. So the poor man in Mukuru Kwaruben doesn't have, let me use polite language, doesn't have enough, his bank account is not large enough. So we will present the the evidence to you on how the installed meters were. So that is a status. Somebody mentioned here about being impressed with the available by the documents that are available to us. The reason, Chairman, we gave them 12 days, or rather they requested, the CS and the team requested for 12 days so that they are able to go and bring us, they can go do the investigations and bring us the end results. And yet here we are seated here after that duration that they were supposed to do the investigation is over. And yet we're being told in the future. We cannot talk about in the future, that once we get to learn in the future, and I'll quote, I'll just go to EPRA's document, page 17, number 41. You say the regulatory action may be monetary in nature. I thought you will come and tell us that we found it is company ABCD. In this instance, you seem to be pointing your finger at Lake Turkana, that these are the actions you've taken. So what you're telling us, we must have another meeting for you to come and report to us what actions you've taken. I agree with the chair that maybe an inquiry is in order, number one. Number two, I think we should concentrate on having, as you said, the MD or the CEO of the saga appearing to answer his own question individually, even if they come as a team, but each saga answers their own question that pertains to them. Because here it seems like somebody, you also mentioned, that I may quote you, that Lake Turkana was unable to maintain their portion of the load that they are supposed to carry once after the dip, and yet you seem to want to also drag in KPLC on an issue that seems to be primarily Lake Turkana's failure to do what they were supposed to do, hence the ripple effect or the domino effect. So, Chair, I don't know, there is need to really get the specific here and also the action that be taken on this matter. And the direction you gave of an inquiry that should take less than a week is the only way that I think that we can get results. That way we can have people raising Bibles, swearing, read Bible, Quran. That way they can give their statement and evidence and oath. And we also call the witness that I think we are aware that are able to be brought by our team. Thank you.
All right. Maybe before it slips my mind, as I give Mheshimiwa Owino, there's something you said, regulator, that this is according to Lake Turkana, the information you gave. So part of it is based on Lake Turkana. So now that raises a very serious issue. Because you are now left at the mercy of information being given by the suspects. And the question is, who is managing this system that says the first trip was Lake Turkana? Is it Lake Turkana itself? Who is managing the logs that says there was a fault with the Kenya Power system? Is it Kenya Power? So then, if these people end up being the ones handling these things, so how safe is our data? How safe is our data? Because part of this data is crucial, especially these logs and the timestamps in establishing what happened. So isn't really that supposed to be the one that every single event that is happening, actually the custodian of those logs must be the regulator? You have to know it, because if you don't know it, then now we have given these people how many weeks, almost 2 weeks. So robust is a system that they cannot delete logs, they cannot mess up with the logs. So that is, again, also opens up a very serious matter that must fully be addressed. So we'll come to you again. Let me ask Owino.
Just a comment on that point. On one line. The only comment was, don't forget we were told by the CS that there was a technical team comprising of 12 engineers that were working under the regulator. But then he gives us an answer based on what the Lake Turkana has said. Just to bring that to the point.
All right, Mheshimiwa Owino.
Thank you, Chair. On culpability, the regulator has just said that they are still conducting investigations, and once they identify whichever entity contributed to this, then they will report. While when you look at Waziri's report on page 3, he's already saying that from the foregoing, it is thus not possible to apportion culpability of the cause of this to any entity or individual. So why are they speaking differently? I thought Waziri is on top there, and whatever the regulator is supposed to be reporting should be something that they have consulted on. Why does it look like from the ministry have already concluded the investigations, while the regulator are still telling us to wait for a report, an outcome of the investigations? Is any entity or individual being insulated from all this, Mr. Chairman? Thank you.
Maybe you can read that together with the Waziri's report. Findings number 5, which says the DRPC at Lake Turkana wind power responded to the voltage dip, but tripped within 142 milliseconds, which is outside the grid code requirements. So now we have agreed it is outside the grid code requirements. Then after that, we absorb them of any wrongdoing. So members, any other member? All right.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for KPLC. I know as a committee we are investigating about the blackout that engulfed the country that particular day. But as we speak here, there are some counties that are still suffering from these blackouts. One of such county is Turkana County. There has been continuous blackout, especially Lodwar town. There is power rationing. And you know, people from my area know that I sit in this committee. So whenever there is a blackout, they call me. They call me as if I work with KPLC. So there is continuous blackout in Turkana, Bona Director. And I want you to really look into it. And upon investigating, some of your staff are saying some contractors moved out with their generators. So I don't know what was really happening in that particular station. Again, still in KPLC, there are issues concerning staff. Most of staff down there are complaining that they are witnessing some segregations. Most of them are volunteered for many years. And when opportunities come, people from other counties are given those chances and they are left out there. They are still volunteering for 5 years and above. And when opportunities come, they are not considered. That is also a concern that is coming out from Turkana County on KPLC. And then when a director, and maybe alongside with Kengen, you know, Turkana suffers a lot of low power supply. Yet the wind power is just on the other side of the lake. The Lake Turkana wind power, it is just on the other side of the lake. So you can just sacrifice some posts and then you supply the power. Then Taukel Dam is generating power, yet Turkana cannot sustain itself on matters power. Then lastly, this one goes to EPRA. We are getting pressure from the citizens Now we've woken up to shocking news of these exaggerated prices. Bwana DG, I think even if we know we need money, but... Yes.
Since that is an agenda by itself, I would think we just hold it.
Okay.
We finish on this, then we get, that is the second item we'll be dealing with.
It's okay. I'm guided, Chair. Thank you.
All right. Next, Mheshimiwa Odega.
Thank you very much. I want to address two issues with the Cabinet Secretary. Number one, do you have record of those who are seriously affected by the blackout or those who are making claims from your office regarding to the losses they incurred during that outage? My number two concern is when the blackout now engulfed the whole country and everybody was in the dark, and now you are given time to come and make presentation here or now we can get the facts about what happened. I've listened to what EPRA has presented. I've also listened to what you have presented. It's like your reports are not running concurrently. There is a missing link between the two reports, and it's like no one is ready to take responsibility. And Waziri, I would want to ask you, if possible, you help us to zero in on someone who was very much responsible on the same, so that we sort this thing once and for all. You also talked about staff morale and a survey which was conducted. I would request that if a report is there detailing what happened, you share the report with the chair so that we can clearly understand the parameters covered. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Those are many questions that you can take. And maybe also that survey said this satisfaction survey. When was it done? I think the MD is only a few months in office. I doubt there is any survey that has been done in your time in office. So how do we rule out that Kenya's power staff are happy without this satisfaction survey? And there is word out there. Of course, the committee doesn't work on gossips, but there is a word that, there is gossip that there could still be an element of sabotage. So unless we have I'll give you. Unless then we have a satisfaction survey conducted, I think it would be unfair to say the staff are happy. So, yes, Mheshimiwa.
Thank you, Chair. You can see the press is here, and we are also here representing Kenyans. Waziri, if you are confronted by Kenyans today, you have given us a very technical report, and let's say now in your capacity as a Cabinet Secretary, you are confronted with the Kenyans, how the Kenyans are listening to you. What can you tell them caused the blackout in a very ordinary, plain language, which any Kenyan can understand? Thank you.
All right. And that word cannot be system disturbance. All right. So maybe, Waziri, you summarize those key points, and you can see basically the key point is that we want absolutely just the cause and the culpability. Those are just the two areas that we are really struggling to zoom into.
Thank you, Chair and honorable members, for the questions, clarifications. I will be allowing guided by the Chair, the various CEOs to clarify the specific questions. But one thing that I'd like to bring forth with is the fact that when we talk about a systems disturbance, and it happens all the time, if we switch off suddenly power in the whole of this parliament right now, that is a loss of demand of so many kilowatts. That is a disturbance which the system must understand and synchronize so that there is no oversupply when there is no off-taker. I've just used what we consume here may not be as large. So even when you switch on power in your own house, from an engineering perspective, Engineer Chairman, that's a system disturbance. There's transients. Anytime you switch, there's transient. Transients is the overvoltage that occurs in those milliseconds. And even as you look at these two reports, we would seem to be getting somewhere. We are getting somewhere. Because we've indicated that what you call fall-through time, the time where the system should hold before it breaks, before it switches itself off, is defined in the CREED code. And so we are looking at those times. There's a time that we possibly need to look at. In the report that we presented, I did say we have given you 21-45-09-187 in terms of Lake Turkana experiencing or the dynamic reactive power compensation was recorded by the SCADA system. Those milliseconds are not approximate, they are recorded. If you look at the EPRA report on when Lake Turkana saw a fault.
Maybe Waziris, this 21.45.09.187, where did you get it from?
From the SCADA system.
Whose SCADA?
Our SCADA.
Who is our?
The SCADA.
Like now, is it the Kenya Power system or under management of the regulator? That's basically what I want it to be on record.
Dr. Siror is offering to assist me on that. Bana Siror, please.
It's okay.
Thank you, Chair. What usually happens is that the first report, you will get it on the SCADA system, which logs and it stores all the information in the national control. But to derive or to get to know the exact timings and everything, what happens is that the teams of engineers will visit all the critical substations that are involved, and then they download the relay data. That relay data now that is downloaded, be it from SUSWA, from LDWP, and all the other locations, will also give you, and even give you the waveforms. I think you've seen some waveforms which I shared. These ones are actually downloaded from the protection relays in those locations. So, and that is actually the time now that is looked at LDWP plant, the DRPC, the one that tripped. What was the timestamp? And it will actually give you with all the waveforms. So there is that reconciliation where, at the first instance, you will get it from the SCADA system. But for you to really narrow down and get to the exact timings, you have to go to the specific relays, download the information, which will also have even what were the figures at those particular instances. So that is actually what I just wanted to add in, that you are not just depending one system to tell you everything. You are also downloading, and the more accurate data is actually in the relays in those specific areas. So we downloaded relays from so many of the substations. Yeah. We downloaded relays in Olkaria. We downloaded relays in Adri, Sinya, Suswa, LTWP plant. So, and that's actually, that explains even why it took slightly longer in terms of assembling of all of that data, which is a mountain of data, and now trying to analyze it to come to what exactly happened and at what timings.
Okay. You see, what I had in mind is the owner. You see, now it is your data, true. And now, yes, you can see now, you are one of the key suspects. We alongside the Lake Turkana. Let us just be honest, have an honest conversation, because you found the system there. Let's not personalize it.
No, the CS actually had mentioned it.
Because, just a minute. Okay. You found the system. We are not blaming you as a person. But we are saying it is a Kenya Power logs, right? Now, what if now Lake Turkana comes with their own version of their logs from a perspective on what caused the problem, and with their times? Now, which one do we trust? Because you see, that's where the element of regulator comes in so that he can see both you he can see the Lake Turkana, he can see everybody, and these logs are real time. So that, or what regulator, am I?
No, you're on the right trajectory, Chair. Maybe I can just comment.
Yes.
And that is why we as the regulator, based on the law that you have passed in this House, you have actually stated that we as a regulator shall not be under the direction or control of any person or individual. If you see the structure of the report that is before you from us as the regulator, we start by stating that we did write to all our licensees. We received on the 8th the reports of all the licensees. We have a view from the distributor Kenya Power. We have a view from the licensees who are the generators, and particularly in this case, Turkana Wind Power Plant. Their positions were not convergent at the start, but then we took an approach where we tried to bring all the parties together. And with the specific question that you ask, I think there is a question also, this was asked by Honorable Mawathe. I think we need to dissociate the distribution licensee from the system operator. If you look at our report, Chair, we have said that the driver of the car, if I can call it that, who's the system operator, should get to the root cause of the incident. And I think, Chair, what you're alluding to as to whether the culpable person could be the judge, the jury, and the executioner because they're running the system. And I think that is the point, Chair, you're trying to make. And that is why we as the regulator, in one of our recommendations, are stating that in our exercise of our legal mandate, we did designate the system operator to be KETRACO because, Chair and honourable members, one of the debates that was before this honourable House was whether to have an independent system operator, an ISO, or a system operator. It was our view in the designation as the regulator that the entity within our energy sector that is least conflicted with respect to the challenge that you're raising, Chair, would be KETRACO. But just to give the assurance, Chair, is that we, even as the regulator, through the support of development partners, we have a line of sight at our offices of the SCADA system. We're able then to be able to collect this data from the SCADA system, as the MD of Kenya Power is saying, from the entire system, from all generators, from the transmission licensee, and also from the distribution licensee. So we are of the view, Chair, that one, we're able then to establish all that data. Two, you are correct that there may be a point of divergence between the distribution licensee and the generators, and that is why, Chair, we did say that these are a preliminary review as the regulator. Once we establish culpability, because I think, Chair, this is narrowing down to what came first, the chicken or the egg. Was it the system disturbance that caused the trip, or it was the trip that then caused the system disturbance? So we don't want to be in a rush as the regulator. Honourable Mawathe had asked this question because there is the element of culpability both from a regulatory sanction standpoint and also from a commercial standpoint, Chair, as we've said.
So when you asked these different entities to give their own versions of what happened, the ones responsible. Because, I mean, practically, you ask them to explain themselves. So, I think moving forward, Waziri, we need to have a system, sort of a data system, that is beyond the Kenya Power itself, the guys who are also the generators, so that we have right now what you should be doing is not actually writing to them or asking them. You should have now looked at the regulator, at the data, and that data should be like live streamed. Only the critical data. I know it's massive logs, but it is not every other time the problem is occurring. But then again, what is a problem on a system? When there is a small disturbance or a huge disturbance, looking at the logs at that particular time and emailing a section of that logs, maybe a minute before and a minute after the disturbance, to a central point where now you can analyze, and every other installation complies, so that whenever there is any problem, but like for instance, why do you have to look at millions of logs when the problems were not occurring around all that time? You zoom in, and if it is zooming in, again, you don't even have to do it manually because the system can be configured in such a way that in event of disturbance, Then you collect the logs automatically a minute or 2 minutes before and after, and then that information is available for a person who is more neutral, who will not run away from a responsibility. Because we cut you short, Waziri, you are still continuing with your presentation when you mentioned this time. Your responses, you can continue.
Thank you, Chair. I was basically saying all is not lost. When you see the report done by the multidisciplinary team, which looked at the various data logs, and I was referring you, for example, to that 187 milliseconds. A millisecond, honorable members, is a 1,000th fraction of a second. The event that occurred, according to the report that the team has given us, at 187 milliseconds, which was what Lake Turkana, when Lake Turkana saw the dip and decided to protect itself by shutting down, without giving what, Chairman, you did note in that reactive power in Lake Turkana responded too quickly and shut itself in within 142 milliseconds. And if you refer to the report, which would attempt to answer your question, from EPRA on page 8, item number 19, you will see that the Joint Technical Committee saw the dip in the Earth River 22066 substation having occurred at 277 milliseconds, exactly the same hour, the same minute, the same second, but a variation in the milliseconds of about 90 milliseconds. So, in terms of what the data the regulator is putting together, we are collecting data in milliseconds. So you will see one event at 277 occurring subsequent to an event that occurred in 187 within 90 seconds. Is the grid code is it within the grid code established time frames that if you see a transience in a millisecond of within 90 milliseconds, the system should shut down. That way, the system in the country would be shutting down every other minute because these kind of transients are there all the time. And this is why we are saying, Chair, even when we don't have enough spinning reserve, and I want to delve a bit into whether we have 3,300 megawatts generation, that is the capacity of the installed plants. But you'll note today that whereas we have 800 plus installed capacity of hydro in Masinga down all the way to Kindaruma, we currently not generating more than 400 because of the level of the water. Whereas you've got installed capacity of wind of 310 megawatts in Lake Turkana, depending on that's the capacity of the machines. But depending on the wind speed and availability of the wind, it could go as low as 0. So our available generation capacity at any time today is at 2,200 and can somebody help me? 2,000?
It can even be worse, because even the day before yesterday, Waziri, we actually load shared close to about 150 megawatts because there was deficit in generation.
What I'm saying here is, it's one thing to have the installed capacity, it is one thing to have them operating optimally because of the availability of wind or availability of solar, availability of water. And as we speak today, when we've reached a high of 2,146 at peak, and we are only able to run a maximum of 2,200, you can see that spinning reserve is so small that when a transient like this happens, when you drop one generation, there is no headroom to support the generation which has dropped. And therefore, that is why we go to a different point, apart from the grid code not having been observed to the extent of system switching off within 90 milliseconds or 142 milliseconds. The question is, suppose we had how much spinning reserve should we be having to be able to, so that when one system drops because a cloud has covered the sun and there's not enough power from solar, is the spinning reserve there to pick up? And so we must really work together as an energy team to ask ourselves, what is the energy security for the country today, even in the advent of one moratorium being removed and another moratorium being put off? But that's one point. The other point is really the holding time, what the engineers will call it the fault, the fault right through, so that if there is a fault for a few milliseconds, the system should not switch off, because otherwise, with a branch falling onto some transmission line, it will switch off. And how many branches falls onto a transmission line all over the country in a day? There will be very many. So, Chair, we've listed a number of areas that we need to address to basically assure the country of almost 100% availability in disregard of the transients that happen all the time. And one of them is really the grid code. We need to work on our grid code. I think the regulator will be telling us within the grid code standards, were the two operators, did they operate within the set standard? And to the extent of the question of Tom, Mheshimiwa Tom, the issue is really who is culpable. And you can almost see us putting 7 areas of culpability, including the moratorium. And we all need to work together. Because really, if we don't have a spinning reserve, anything small that happens today could switch off the country again. And that's a fact. We have a full team here. The issue of the grid code, which we need to work on. When a small disturbance happens, the system should not switch itself off, because otherwise we'll switch off the system several times in the day. And then therefore, the regulator needs to really come out strong on ensuring that every system, the transmission network, the generators, the various generators, are running their system within the grid code that allows for that kind of tolerance, so that we don't have to switch the country, because a very small transients has just some industry are switched off, and the whole country switches off because there's a disturbance in voltage.
Waziri, while you are still there, you know, you took us to page 19 of this EPRA's document. Okay, page 8, bullet 19. And as I say that, maybe let us remove a third party from the culpable list. We are currently looking at 2 only. But this document now sort of solves our problem, unless maybe there is any typing error, because 19 says that the Joint Technical Committee report concludes that the tripping of the LTWP generation plant after allegedly severe system voltage trip possibly caused by 3-phase fault at the river substation at 21:45:09:277 hours. So, according to the logs, the problem with the substation was at 21:45:09:277. Now, on your document, you're saying the first event to occur, according to available SCADA, was the tripping of Lake Turkana at 21:45:09:187. So, how was the Lake Turkana tripping at 187 affected by an event yet to happen at 277? You want to say, regulator, something?
Yes, Chair. With your permission, as you've correctly said, Chair, this is the report of the Joint Technical Committee. And I think the question you're asking, I think we should then go to page 16, which is the conclusion from the regulator that speaks to this particular matter. This is paragraph 29, 30, all through to 33. Because as I said, Chair, we as a regulator received all the logs. We've analyzed the position as put to us by the Joint Technical Team, the system operator, also what was put to us by the generator. And if you look at the timing at 29, there was a system disturbance at 09.178 milliseconds. So I think in terms of a sequence of events from our preliminary analysis. Then at 31, the first power plant then to come out was Electricana wind power, which happened at 187. So the sequence of events is 178, 187, then 962, which 962 was now all carrier 5 and all power.
The 178 is?
178 was a system disturbance. Then we then had 187 when Electricana came out. And then we have 962 when all carrier 5 and all power also came out. And this is now taking out an additional 200, taking the deficit in the system to 477 megawatts against a spinning reserve of 66 megawatts. So that is our view as the regulator in terms of the sequence events.
All right, so now you are saying that these two documents are different, in short. Because the first, according to the position of the ministry, the first event occurred at 21:45:09:187. Now you have introduced an earlier event that occurred at 178. Now, that 178, which is supposed to be now the substation, I want to refer you back to your document. There's the one page that I had read with the 277. I can't remember which page it was. Page 8. So the substation disturbers at 277. That is page 8. Now, on your conclusion, you have this 178, which is now earlier than the 277. I don't know if you're following. So the question is, which one is which? Because the Joint Technical Committee report has concluded that the substation, which I think is the same thing you're referring on 16th, the Adi River substation disturbance was at 277, which is now said to have be the one which triggered a rise in system voltages at Loyangalani. Yet now, in this document, Loyangalani is said to have tripped at 187. How are you triggering an event, yet the event has already happened at 187? You could just look at your page 8 and against the correct version by the ministry. For this one, I'm going with Waziri Chirchir for the timings.
Chair, with your permission, as I said earlier on, we did, as the regulator, write to all the licensees. There was a technical team of the sector that presented a joint technical committee report. What we have captured at our page 8 is, as I said, is a conclusion of the joint technical committee report.
Correct.
We have received all that data. We have looked at it. We are saying today it is really not conclusive. There's still some work that needs to be done. But on the basis of our analysis, what is then captured in the conclusion is what our analysis is. I think that is the point we're trying to make, Chair.
Okay, you know, the information I'm requesting for, maybe I can rephrase it. The Joint Technical Committee, which obviously has spent quite some time on this matter, has made a conclusion. And for this particular purpose, the conclusion they have made is that the disturbance at the river substation occurred at 21:45:09:277. Now, according to the logs available, again, Lake Turkana tripped at 21:45:09:187. 187 is smaller than 277. So, this trip is earlier than the river substation disturbance, which disturbance is claimed to be the one causing the Lake Turkana to trip. Is somebody trying to confuse me intentionally, or is it the figures that are probably wrong? Because I think maybe we know the person and we are protecting the person. Because this is not my data, this is your data. And it is clear from this analysis that for some reason we should be asking ourselves, what was this cause of the trip for Lake Turkana? Was it really Kenya Power that we are blaming? Or is it another problem within Lake Turkana that caused this particular trip? Because it is not practical for a system to trip now and the alleged cause happens 1 hour after. It is the opposite. So I would imagine that if the problem is the substation, we record an event, maybe some sort of a problem, slightly earlier. Then now the system looks at maybe after some milliseconds, as you've said by your code, then later now the system will trip, but not the other way around. Yes, please.
Very quick one. Just want to ask the regulator. Are you saying that the Joint Technical Committee report that concludes that the dip that caused this occurred at 277, are you saying that their finding is incorrect? Because when they find that the dip occurred at 277, and as far as you're concerned, the system disturbance occurred at 178, thus causing Lake Turkana to have a disturbance that occurs at 187, that is about 0.08 of millisecond later after your 178. That is the 177. So you're saying what they are saying, what their findings are incorrect, and your conclusion, we should disregard that and follow your conclusion that now says that that the disturbance occurred at 178 as compared to the dip that is at 2, that the joint team finds at 277. We're just looking for guidance, and what are your findings? Please, thank you.
Chair, how's your answer? You can tell us where you got the 178.
Thank you, Chair. I will start with the first question the Chair has asked as I come to Honorable Mahadi. In terms of the data that we received, we did receive data in terms of data dumps and logs, one from the system operator. We also received data dump and logs from the generators as well, and in this specific case also Lake Turkana wind power. In terms of the nexus and the question that Honorable Mawade has asked, we are
there, because that's where the data is. So this 178 you got from Lake Turkana?
No, we did not. This is data that we received data dumps from the system operator.
Kenya Power?
Yes.
Like seriously? Is it what about the 277?
Chair, the 277 was captured in the report. If I may, just in terms of sequence, there is
captured in the technical, the report by the technical team, eh? You mean?
Yes, in the report.
So if there is a technical team that was established, so basically what you are saying is that there is an opinion of the technical team now and you have your own opinion.
Chair, what we are saying is we as the regulator have not conclusively, and if you look at our report, Chair, and this is where we started from, is that we are here today. One, there was a system disturbance. There are three issues probably here, Chair. One, we did receive data dumps and logs from all our licensees. Two, there was a joint technical committee that took a view. Three, we did receive also the views of the generator, in this case, Lake Turkana Wind Power. We have undertaken an analysis. This analysis is not conclusive. At this point in time, Chair, as I said, it's an issue of chicken and egg. There was system disturbance, and from what I heard earlier on, system disturbances are normal occurrences within the electricity supply industry, particularly on the grid. So this is a disturbance that was recorded. The question here is that system disturbance that occurred in Nairobi, there is the substation and the bus bars at Suswan. Whether there's a correlation between that system disturbance in Nairobi and a correlation between that system disturbance, whether it was seen at Suswa, and whether it is the same that was seen by the SCADA system of the generator
I'm sorry, but I don't know why I feel like you are running away from the subject matter. Because the subject matter here is, this is your document. The technical committee that was put together to analyze this data by the ministry. And it's another team. You have quoted that the team has concluded that the disturbance with the substation was at 277. Now, you bring some figures in your conclusion. You state a new figure of 178. Remember here, these milliseconds, we are talking about money. We are talking about billions of compensations to Kenyans. And now, the way the milliseconds are rearranged means who is paying the money. You see, if you reduce by 10 milliseconds, it has a bearing. So now, the question I'm asking is that you have said that this technical committee has brought a figure of 277 as the time when the first disturbance at the substation occurred. Now, you in your conclusion, you didn't build up the story. You put a figure of 178 to say that is a time when the substation disturbance occurred. Well knowing that, depending on the time when Lake Turkana tripped, these variations of times have a bearing because we need to know which comes first. This egg-chicken thing is the thing we are tracing. But if we remove these figures, confusing figures of 178, then it is no longer a chicken-egg thing because we already know what happened first. These things cannot have happened at the same time. We must know which is the first event to occur. Was it the problem at the substation or the problem at Lake Turkana? The data is clear from the technical committee that the first event to occur is Lake Turkana. If you compare the technical report and what has been presented by the ministry, stated by Waziri, as the time of the first event, as a 187. So this 187, which is now the disturbance with Lake Turkana, seems to have happened earlier than the technical committee report of 277 when the river substation had issues. So from your document, it's like now the figures or the timings are interchanged. But members, I think this matter might need
just one point.
Additional ventilation.
Just at one point. He has eventually told you, the regulator has eventually told you the source of the 178, which is KPLC. In your document here, you have indicated that the technical team gave you the, a time at 2:77. The joint technical team. Where did the joint technical team get this time of 2:77 when they presented the document to you?
Chair, I wish to state that the time and the timestamps that we did receive are from data dumps that we received both from the generator and also from the system operator.
Chair, my question is very direct. Please stop tap dancing. My question is very specific about the 277. Stop tap dancing all around. Where did the figure, the timestamp of 277, where did the joint technical team get it from to bring to you?
This is from the data logs from the system operator.
So the same, it's okay. So the same system operator who gave a timestamp of 277 as the starting point, or as the initial point, also to the technical team, gave a different timestamp of 178 to the regulator, 277 to the technical team, 178 to the regulator. That's what you're telling us.
No, Chair. Through the Chair, what I'm saying is that we received data, and it's a data dump that talks to millisecond after millisecond. So it is not mutually exclusive. It was data on millisecond by millisecond basis. So it's not mutually exclusive that one number was given and another was not.
Chair told you that the time makes a very huge difference on who is responsible and in terms of compensation, etc. This is your document. You are the technical team that was working for you and the ministry. So which one is it? Both of the figures, the initial trigger happened at 277 as per the joint technical team. But the initial trigger happened at 178 as far as the regulator is concerned. Which one is correct? What happened where? When?
Through the Chair, in our presentation, we did say that the cause of that system disturbance and what happened before which is yet to be conclusively determined by the system operator.
All right. So I think now, since we are at a point where we are going round circles on this particular matter, so maybe I'll guide as follows. First, it is obvious that we need to have one central point, for a person to provide us information with. So it is unfortunate that the regulator has to call, the operator has to call Lake Turkana to bring their data. I don't know who is in charge of that data, because if it is their data, they can do whatever they want with the data. So now, is somebody, how do you even verify the logs? Because the system administrator, who has all the privileges, can do quite some deals with the data. So we must agree that there is a gap that we must agree on how to resolve. Then let us also agree on another thing, that we are not satisfied fully because we are almost the person responsible, but because of the new figures which have been introduced, we will sit as a committee to guide, because I am foreseeing a possibility with the support of the other members to zoom in a little further now to each of the people responsible. Unless then maybe that data can be available as quickly as possible, then we'll find a way to deal with each of the persons mentioned, so that we can get this information. Right now, it becomes a bit difficult. I thought with the numbers given by Waziri, we were good to go because they make sense. But if there is another version, so we can only, and that version, it seems to be a bit difficult to differentiate. Unless now Kenya Power, you can come out and say, it was me. If it was you,
I just wanted to confirm to the honorable members that the integrity of the data in the relays cannot be tampered with. So long as you are just allowed to download the data, that's actually why it doesn't matter whether it came from Kenya Power, it doesn't matter whether it came from National Control, but so long as you are able to download the data in the relays, in the generation plans, that data will be accurate unless it's just deleted. So for me, even if the data was provided by LTWP, we are good to go. But maybe more importantly, and that's actually what this...
You said unless the data was?
I'm saying unless it is deleted. But for as long as it's available, and it was available, I want to confirm that it was available.
We are at that point.
Yes, it was available.
It is deleted.
But it was available, Chair.
But I have no problem with that, and you are doing well so far. We have no problem with that. We are just saying that this statement you put in place, unless it is deleted, you know, it opens a room for that possibility that it can be deleted. So if it can be deleted, and the kind of invoices we are talking about here, my friend, is a lot of money. Kenyans lost a lot of money. So if an organization looks at a possibility of compensating Kenyans, some say 3 billion, and they know they can delete.
Yeah.
If they delete, and that responsibility to ensure that the data cannot be deleted is not with a regulator. And this thing can go either way. It can be Kenya Power, it can be a generator, it can be along another way. So if it can be deleted, so how sure are we that now when we start talking about double figures, it is not a new figure being established through that particular method you are saying? How is the integrity of the data in question assured in this kind of a scenario where this thing can go your way, can go another way? It is your relays, not our relays. So it is your relays, and the only person we have put in place to ensure that we are protected is the regulator. This regulator, even as much as we are chasing him, he has nothing. He is waiting for you to give him the data so that he can give. Data so that you can present to the committee. The same people we want to invoice.
Yeah.
So are we not seeing this gap and saying that if it is your data and there is an event that likely that data is required at some point, as you keep your copies of data, there is a copy that cannot be deleted that is automatically sent to the regulator so that we know that data there is somewhere. A trustable source of a person who is not part of those being suspected. Yes, Mheshimiwa.
Chair, now, as we are continuing, I think we are realizing that there are some discrepancies. Now, you are just giving us a suggestion. Why can't we engage some of these entities and the mentioned people individually now, individually and independently, so that we get, full details? Because let us now not rely on a collective report. We need to now engage them, each one of them individually.
I think that should be the way. let us, because like we said, and mentioned Waziri Chirchir, it is only fair that everybody Waziri.
In my view, Chairman, we're making very good progress. You know, numbers don't lie.
Yes.
And then therefore, because we're dealing with data logs, which, like the engineers confirmed,
yes,
the attribute of the system is that you can only read. You cannot
read only.
You cannot change that data. And because there are codes of how data is handled in the system, on how we conduct business. If a system did not have data, that could possibly be criminal to the extent that really, how can data disappear? So to the extent that the attributes of the system can allow us to read only, and because we are dealing with numbers, and we have zoomed into 3 numbers, and why don't you allow us to confirm? We are making good progress. But it is not only the time stamps that we need to confirm. We have also said in the mitigation that we need to be clear about the grid code requirements, so that even if an event happen, should a subsequent event happen before a certain time lapse, and then therefore really we can come back, because this is not a small issue. It's not a small issue. We take it very seriously. The country was without power for 19 hours, and we need to really be clear that it should not happen again. And to an extent where we have to allocate responsibility, we should be able to do it. So,
Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
All right. Thank you.
Just one comment.
Yes, please.
I think I want to concur with you and Mheshimiwa Owino that we should call each saga on their own, by themselves, on their own day, separately, so that we can look into that. Then we move to the next one. In the meantime, I just want to suggest to the regulator, I think you should be independent enough. You cannot, whereby you have maybe this system of monitoring should be located in your office. You cannot be the regulator, and yet you are depending on the person that you're regulating to give you the information, and yet there's a possibility that he or she may be injured financially if she gives you the true information. A chance is, although the CS have said they cannot be altered, but the MD KPLC has said they can also be deleted, and is the host. So there is need for us to find a way in the future. When such this occurs, it is under the hands of the regulator.
Thank you very much, Mash. So, yes, as you do your question, you also comment on whether you support that proposal or not.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I want to support the same statements that have been made by my colleagues, Honorable Owino, and equally to Honorable Mawade, and equally to yourself, Chair, that everyone that has been mentioned in this particular case, we handle it individual by individual case. While I also pick my statement and my comments from Honorable Cecilia, that after the blackout that the entire country witnessed, there are sections of this country, again, that is still facing the same challenge. And equally, I want to mention a case in South Rift where every week or twice or 3 times a week, we are facing blackout challenges. There is a paragraph by Honorable CS that overloading of transformers, and this case has been given to KETRACO. I want to put it in form of a question and or in form of a recommendation. why then can we not be able to give out the installation of new transformers in substations that are already existing to Kenya Power? Is that not possible that KETRACO can hand over the installation of new transformers in existing substation to Kenya Power? And as I conclude, for the case of a technical failure that we are all now trying to explain using so many technical languages that Kenyans are not understanding, my case here is, can you be able to convince us as a committee and equally convince Kenyans that this particular technical failure that we are explaining in technical terms, is it not a case of negligence, and equally, is it not a case of sabotage? Is someone trying somewhere to sabotage the Kenyan economy that is equally trying to recover? Thank you, Chair.
That can be summarized in less than a minute. Yes, Waziri.
Thank you, Chair. Like I said again, numbers don't lie. We should be able, now that we are dealing with numbers, be able to corroborate these numbers and come out with the true position, because I want to confirm that we are not taking this issue serious. We are not lightly. It's a very serious issue, Chair. And even as you seek to call us individually, before you do that, if you accord us one more opportunity, we can confirm this data and have a final position, not only on which event occurred before which, but equally on the requirements of the grid code requirements in terms of sustaining a disturbance. As regards the transmission network and the transformers that are run by the transmission network, those are huge mega transformers, which Mheshimiwa Victor could be talking about some part of South Rift going towards Siaya and Homa Bay, where the voltages late in the evening are not adequate to sustain some of the big plants. And even in our homes, what the CEO was talking about, where sometimes we're just forced to load shed because of we do not have enough power to move to that area, or we do not have enough transmission. There's transmission constraint. What we are currently doing, Chair, is we've secured a facility of about 55 billion Kenya shillings to build. We've built a line between Olkaria to Narok. We've built a transmission line all the way from Chemosit to Bomet. There is a link between Bomet and Narok where we do not have a 220 kV. And once we get that line, we should be able to evacuate more of the Olkaria power to support those voltages in Western Kenya, which currently are being supported by the GT, Moroni GT. And so that's just an implementation phase in terms of delivering the right voltages, delivering the right belong to Kenya Power. They are huge mega transmission 220 kV transformers to be able to do that, and that is the responsibility of KETRACO. But luckily, Chair, the funding has been secured from Africa Development Bank and South Korea funding, and I think at 0.1% cost of that facility, and we have a timeline to be able to clear the challenge in Western Kenya with respect to load shedding and low voltages in the evening to support some of those industries in that region. I think that is about, but my request, Chair, is even as we seek to drill down and get to the bottom of understand this so that it doesn't happen again, and we do put the correct mitigation measures, we need to work on our grid code. We need to understand this data on if a disturbance happen, and I did explain the opening of the statement that has been made jointly with these engineers in the House, that as a disturbances happen all the time, and yet the system, just because there's a disturbance, should not just collapse. And then so not only to answer on which event occurred before which, but also the more important one is, shouldn't the system be able to, under the grid code requirements, sustain those disturbances, and after a certain time, if it realizes that it is the transient is not going away, then it is recorded as a major fault, and therefore the system should switch itself off to protect the system instead of causing more damage. Thank you, Chair.
So thank you very much. Then in light of what you're saying, if it is in the opinion of the ministry, there is a more rearrangement of this information and the time with clarity that provides more information, that data is welcome. Of course, what then would happen, because then we must give Kenyans a response, is that how timely you provide information that we feel it is satisfactory guides us on whether there is now need to zoom into the individual, because we are doing this because we do not know currently who specifically absorbs blame. If we were to have that person today, or this data with clarity to the extent that without even mentioning the person, it follows. But when we have two conflicting times, then we need to remove one. If we cannot remove one, then we have to proceed and now prosecute in that particular manner. But if the data can be rearranged properly in a sequence, then we can be able to understand how to deal with that particular matter. At the same time, with the clarity on how long each of the generators were able to hold, and then we can now then be against the standard code. Then I think that is going to help us a lot. So I want us to move away from that matter, and as we do that, Mawade, you have something small to say? 10 seconds?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bwana CS, I believe we've moved away from that matter, as the chairman has indicated. There is the issue of meter harvesting and transformer removal at Mukuru kwa Ruben and also previously Mukuru kwa Njenga. There was an installation, and I visited the MD, and I thought that I visited the MD's office a week and a half ago, and I thought we had brought this thing to, he would handle it so that we can find a way to make sure that we earn money from the consumption of electricity. We had about 18,000 meters that were installed in Mukuru kwa Ruben. When there was a shortage of meters in the country, the KPLC employees harvested the meters, and once the meters were supposedly stolen, don't want to put the two together, but KPLC involved, they were turned off or they were blocked. But within about maybe a week or two, you find that they've been installed somewhere else, in Runda, Karen, Syokimau, because you can see they have their bills, they have the receipt on their phone of having paid for the meter, so they can track the meter by just going to the KPLC office. And so the meters are harvested from the poor people of Mukuru kwa Ruben, in this instance, and previously Mukuru kwa Njenga, and then they're installed because there's a shortage. You take it from the poor and go and install them. The other day, I visited the office and I asked transformer was brought back after I visited the office. The same transformer has been carried away when I walked to you about an hour and a half ago. It was being carried away to Donholm office. I've shared with you the two officers, the two ladies, who have been harvesting the meters and now in this instance the transformer. There is no way. You will look, once you remove the meters, you will get an excuse, a very good enough excuse to come and take the transformer. I know previously we didn't have transformers. They didn't have meters either. And if you want, we can bring you the list, Wazir directly to your office, of the meters that were harvested from there, and if you put a team, not KPLC, to look for you where that meter is, you'll find it was the sequence of the registration number was for Mukuru Kwarupen. But this time around, you'll find it serving somebody in Runda. As we sit here, Bwana MD, I had sent you a message, it's not secret, that would you please have them return the transformers as we look for solutions? Because basically, you've put another maybe 2,000 or between 800 and 2,000. I don't know what was the size of the transformers, but you put them in the darkness. Can you just ask them to put them back where they are and to connect them back where they, the way they were? And I'll be in your office if you want this afternoon or tomorrow, so that can work out. I thought we had an agreement, so that can work out. How can you earn money using this? And he told me to wait, that you are procuring thank you, sir, thank you, Chair, but that you are procuring the meters, and you will be able to put the meters so that you can start earning money. Can you just put them, even if it's 1,000 household? That's a very huge number. And I think they're in your office in Donholm as we speak. The committee is in your office, the team is in your office. Please assist us in putting that back. I want to confirm that we'll put back those two transformers that he just took today. The others we can deal with. The other 14 or 17 transformers we can deal with later. But these ones, I will not allow them to be taken to, supposedly there is a building, there's a new construction, a new site that they need a transformer, so they just go and harvest from Watwa Kijiji. That's not fair.
All right.
Assurance, please.
Well, okay. Waziri.
Very quickly.
Yes.
And assure,
just 30 seconds.
And assure the honourable members that I'll take up that as the minister. Vandals are vandals if they are taking a transformer without due regard, unless they are upgrading. If you've got a 50 kVA transformer, which is small for the area, the point is this: there must be a replacement upgrading before the other one is taken. But if it is being removed with no replacement, that could be seen in the light of a vandal just carrying away a transformer. And it does not matter whether it is a Kenya Power employee or an ex-Kenya Power employee or a person who is removing a transformer for purpose of smelting and removing copper. We cannot really be harvesting transformers, to use that word, if there is that happening. So, Chair, I will take up that. The CEO is here. Correct. And ensure that unless a transformer was being upgraded, and unless we don't need an upgrade, there should be no reason why a transformer is being removed in an area which is already installed and taken to a new area without a replacement or an upgrade for that matter. So
Waziri, that
Chair
issue
Mawade, I will take up that, and I think the CEO has had the concern, very serious concern, and at the ministry, as regarding the meters, we would like to possibly do an audit of these meters. The meter story was really bad a while ago when we were injuncted in court not to buy meters, and it exacerbated this challenge. But as we speak today, I think we have some close to 1 million meters which are being delivered at Kenya Power, and we should be able to really, it does not have any purpose for somebody to be using somebody else's meter when we have got enough meters. CEO, do you want to add anything?
No, I don't want us to get to that because we deviate. The only thing we want is a solution. And I think we can, today is on when? Friday. I think there must be a specific response to the members' concern. We will ask the clerk to draft that request so that it is formally responded to by Tuesday. And the matter being raised by Mheshimiwa Mwade is a very, very serious matter. It is not just his constituency. Yesterday, I got a text message from one of my constituents. And they told me we are waiting for the bigger transformer that Kenya Power told us they will replace with the one we were having. Then I asked them, when it was moved, was it working? They said, yeah, it was working. They carried, they told us they were going to bring a bigger one. So honestly, it is happening. I mean, it has happened in my place. I got a text just yesterday. So it seems like, I don't know if it is your Kenya Power officers or maybe people masquerading as such, or still maybe the officers who see a lucrative, maybe new person who has you need to tell us what exactly has happened. We can start with Mawadhes, then we can compile similar cases for other constituencies who are affected.
Chair, for the record.
I don't want to reopen. Yes.
For the record,
yes.
There was an indication that it might be non-Kenya Power employees who have taken it.
It is possible.
That's not possible. That's not correct, because we know them. The person who who has been harvesting the meters at our place is called Ruth Kasheila, out of the Donholm office. The one who carried the transformers today is mother. So I was not going to bring it up until it was indicated that maybe it's not Kenya Power employees. I'm giving you the names for the record on Hansard so that you can know that it is Kenya Power employees. We know them. We know each other. We know them because they work in our area. They are responsible of Donholm.
So, MD.
Thank you. So don't indicate that it's not possible.
Those transformers, now that the information is so clear, why harvest transformers? Because the people from where, you look at areas, maybe they look like slums, they don't need electricity like any other person who harvests that transformer. If there is a general shortage of transformers, let it affect those ones first, those priority ones. I don't think it is fair. Maybe we'll call you for an explanation on the shortage, because it can only be done since you seem to have shortage of transformers. But either way, even with the few they are, you cannot remove a transformer, harvest, transfer to other people as if they are more special than the other Kenyans. That one cannot be allowed. So members, let us close this chapter of the first agenda. The next agenda is just an explanation on the ongoing matter of fuel cost. It was not today in our agenda, but it is of interest to Kenyans. I got a 411 and looked at the new prices of fuel, and it's really astonishing. It's amazing that you wake up, the prices have changed by almost 20 shillings, and people are just so quiet as if nothing has happened. If you look at Kipto, is so composed as if nothing happened. And last night, he just increased the cost of fuel by almost 20 shillings. Have we gotten to that level where we have no feelings for Kenyans? So if it is by justification of the crude oil, we need to know and also try to understand when was it that these prices changed by so much. So we really have to just say as it is, what is it that caused this kind of increase? So that we understand what kind of trouble we are living with. And just as a way of guiding, we have also talked as a committee, and we might proposing to give to Kenyans. This issue of waking up one day, that's something that looks like a one-man show, and you announce prices, then we will look at the available framework and see how we can enlarge that decision-making. I know you will say it is formulas, but I am still not convinced that even under the current arrangement, we know we used to delay these fluctuations by almost 2 months. I don't know if that is the current situation. So Waziri, this thing has a huge implication. You understand that the cost of fuel affects so many sectors. And it is not just the fuel itself. Now we are likely to see increases in matatu fares. Some of the critical areas that consume diesel in production in large quantities obviously are going to be affected. How much more of these surprises are we going to see? And are we safe? We are supposed to make our payments for the G2G, I think, this month, or is it next month? Is it this month? Now, that means even the possibility of even more pressure on the dollar, because the money somehow has to be paid, because I don't think everything is already converted. So what I would like to know is basically what caused this major fluctuation, and what other surprises we are likely to see, and if we are still safe with G2G. And for your own interest, let me also put it this way, Waziri and team. You know, this committee just comes in to reason out so that we can see a way forward. There is some time we had a discussion around some of these issues, and it shouldn't look like when the committee raises some issues, it's an obstacle. It is sometimes trying to think ahead, and because many brains are better than a single brain, and see potential danger of anything as things proceed. So we want also you to pronounce yourself on the matter of whether we are still safe with G2G, and if next month we are going to likely see another increment by the means you are using for projections. So Waziri, your time. Yes. Yes.
Sometimes earlier this year, Waziri came to us when this G2G arrangement was starting, and Waziri explained some of the benefits that we were going to get as a country because of the G2G arrangement. One of them was that the price of fuel was going to reduce. Another benefit was that this was going to really even stabilize our dollars. As we speak now, I think the dollar has been, the cost of the dollar has been increasing. The cost of fuel has been increasing. So I've never seen any benefit that we've gotten as a country because of the G2G. So Waziri, maybe you may have to explain to us or convince us again whether this G2G arrangement is helping us and where has it helped us. I've heard that a payment is supposed to be made soon. We are now going to make the first payment, but this payment that we are making, where have we benefited as a country from the G2G arrangement that we are in? Waziri, thank you.
Let us have in that order, then we can finish with Mandazi.
Mine is very light, Chairman. We have CS here in charge of energy and petroleum. And when you look at your funds, you'll see 411 bringing a message, a warning from another cabinet secretary, telling Kenyans to be ready because fuel will be increasing with 10 shillings every month up to February next year. Where are we?
Yes, Mheshimiwa Victor.
Yeah, Chair. I wish I could have mentioned this while we are all in. My request is, as you protect the witness, also protect us members. If we are sticking to one question, kindly stick to one question. If it's 1 minute, let it be 1 minute, because you understand, Chair, it's a Friday. I personally come from a rural constituency. I have to go back home to take care of the ground. Back to where we are.
You said it would have been better if you asked, you say that when? On a light note.
On a light note, though. Thank you. Picking from Honorable Tom Odege about a CSO, just in his Twitter handle, this being an house of record, we want to also mention about the same and have a concern. If that is going to happen, you, Bwana CS, we are talked as a government that we were not going to go back to subsidy. Is it occurring to you that maybe we now should think about subsidizing, because we cannot always leave this particular case of high prices to the local mwananchi, to the local mamampoga, to the local boda men who, waking up to this morning, have made several calls to us as leaders to ask on their behalf, what is it that is really happening? Because they were promised that the prices were going to come down, and prices are really going up, as we all can see. Lastly, Bwana CS, with you maybe then enlighten Kenyans whether this high cost of fuel is only happening in Kenya. How is these prices comparable to our neighbors, specifically maybe Uganda, or East African neighbors, Uganda, Tanzania, and any other country? Are we the only ones suffering, or other countries are suffering equally? And what is the cost for the same? Thank you.
When you are away, it was said that it is 1 minute per member. You can prosecute.
Fully guided, Chair. Mine is very, very straightforward. I don't think we've ever had such a huge increase of the cost of fuel like we've done this time around. 16 shillings jump per litre. That is so humongous. What you've done without knowing, or knowingly, you've laid off so many people. So many people will lose jobs because of the cost of fuel. If you talk to a boda rider out there, they will not be able to make the ends meet. They cannot charge that much. The matatu price will go up. The unga and sukari and anything else that we consume will go up because of the cost of the delivery of the items. We are murdering Kenyans slowly by slowly. We are killing Kenyans slowly by slowly. It is no longer tenable. It was 140 or 139 shillings about a year ago. It's 211 shillings, the cost of petrol. That is such a huge jump. From about 140 to 211, that is 71 shillings jump in a year's time.
Right.
Thank you. There is need. Tell us why. What is the reason? What is the cause of such a huge jump? And what can we do as a country?
All right. Thank you, Waziri. As you take those ones, I'm sure you've gotten the 411.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I did see the 411.
I can just read it for
No, I saw it, Chair. I saw it.
It is not for your interest.
I saw it yesterday.
No, not that one.
Yeah.
Not that one. I'm saying 5 minutes ago.
I've not seen that one.
Okay, yeah. So the 411, that is 1353, fares in public service vehicles to increase by 20% effective midnight. today, following fuel price hike by EPRA, Matatu Owners Association announces. And even as Waziri, we do this, you know, sometimes because you seem to have this information early, it's always good to prepare Kenyans. The thing of like now, just midnight without even psychological preparation, sometimes people understand when there is they understand that we are moving to some difficult times of some form, but then you wake up without, and everything looks normal, the weather is the same. Then some additional 20 shillings without even preparing Kenyans psychologically. I think that's also another area we need to look at. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Chair. Let's deal with it in two parts, the current heavy increase and whether G2G is working today. Because G2G was in the order of questions today, we have a structured answer which I don't wish to spend much time on because we have the response, but I'll basically highlight the fact that G2G is working and helping Kenya significantly today because we're dealing with sovereign governments as suppliers of these products. And when we learned that, and we'll give a detail, yesterday, Chair, we did launch the EV mobility regulations or guidelines. And during that launch, we did make a very comprehensive presentation on the cost of fuel today and going forward. And we are likely to even be going to harder times because of these are Platts prices from OPEC, and there's nothing much we can do about. There's been some 3.6 million barrels cut on daily basis, about 4%, 3.6 to 4%. And it's just unfortunate that we don't have our own product as a country. But as we launched the EV guidelines yesterday, we did have a comprehensive presentation which we made to Kenya through the media, and we will attempt to spend some time to bring out some of the clarifications on what's happening. Like, for example, kerosene, Chair, between June and today, the price has gone up by over $250 per metric per barrel, from a low of 600 to a high of 900. What we have previously done when we ran the subsidy program is we took this away from the Kenyan and they did not see the increase, and we paid on the back of Treasury balance sheet. We do have the stabilization fund, which raises about 5 shillings and 40 cents for each diesel and PMS, and which only collects about 2.5 billion. The increase this time, on the basis of the Platts pricing, the landed international cost prices, was up by about 8.7 billion. And we love the numbers. These are numbers which are published. Platts prices are world prices. They are obtaining across the whole world. We did show yesterday, and we'll mention very briefly, how the UK, the US, South Africa, Uganda, Tanzania has been hit with this kind of pricing. And it is just unprecedented. And I wish it was still possible to subsidize until, of course, we had some covenants with IMF. But suddenly the pain is heavy. It's not going to be easy. But luckily, because of our G2G, we have been able to go back to, in the last 2 weeks when we noticed the trend was going off, we went back to the international oil companies and negotiated to bring down the freight and premium. I want to confirm that for diesel, whereas we'd been paying $118 on freight and premium, we've negotiated a discount of $30 and brought that number to 88, something that could benefit us at the pump up to 8 shillings on freight and premium alone. Members may wish to note that freight and premium for diesel in our neighboring country today is running at between 140 to 160, which is twice what we are paying in Kenya. For PMS, Chair, we did negotiate down freight and premium from $97.5 per metric ton or meter cube to 90, a flat 90. The freight and premium in the neighboring region today is at 260, 3 times what we are getting in Kenya. And that, if that was the case, that would be another 25 shillings on top of the pump. Figures which are untenable, and we have to talk together on how we are going to secure economy in the challenge that we face today, compounded challenges of Russia-Ukraine, compounded challenge of the OPEC politics of the major producers reducing the barrels, 3.6 barrels per day, possibly to increase the prices, the challenge of winter coming in, and the fact that we have withdrawn the subsidy, which is what could have cushioned the Kenyans. And so, Chair, we have a fairly comprehensive numbers table that we could, I would like to ask Kipto to spend another 2 minutes to just talk to the numbers in the region today. And together, we need to ask ourselves, what do we do? But I want to confirm that as regarding the G2Gs working well, it was not meant to reduce the price of petroleum. It was meant to address the macro issue of availability of dollars to go to the rest of the economy. Today, there's been no dollar on petroleum account, which has gone out of the country for the last 6 months. The first cargo is maturing this month, the first 8 cargoes, which we brought in April, and those dollars, we approached the market on the 90th day, and we've been buying the dollar. The industry has been buying the dollar slowly. So those dollars are available for the first, second, third, fourth cargo. So it's nothing to do with the G2G. In fact, the G2G has helped us to address the spread, the interbank. It has helped us to make the dollars available for the rest of the industry. You can imagine today, if every month the petroleum was sucking another $500 million on a monthly basis, we would be in a very bad situation. The situation in our neighboring countries, and they have approached us, they are trying to go G2G to postpone this challenge and structure the market, not just postpone the problem, but structure the market, because when things happen like that, speculative tendencies happen. Everybody becomes a bank. Everybody buys and sells dollar, and you get that spread that we saw where buying and selling was at a spread of about 15 shillings, which today is at 2-3 shillings. The depreciation of the shilling has significantly come down from a high of about 3 to 4% to about 1% today. So in terms of where we would be today, I don't know. But G2G is working. The macroeconomists at the Treasury and the Central Bank can answer that question better than I can do. But as regarding the prices that the regulator announced yesterday, and I want to confirm that the pricing regime in Kenya is established under the Energy Act, which established the regulator. I would like, Chair, with your permission, because this is another really important issue that we need to explain to the country through the members of the House what exactly is happening and what is likely to happen in the next 2-3 months towards December. And therefore, what are we going to do as a country to secure our economy? Maybe we need another G2G. Maybe we need to go back to, we need to look at the stabilization fund and how much that stabilization fund can. Before the intervention from the members, Chair, allow me to ask Kipto to give us some of the numbers in the region and what exactly is happening. And with that understanding, how do we mitigate and address the situation for Kenya and the economy at large in the next 3 months when we see the prices continuously going up and yet we have removed the subsidy?
Waziri, before Kipto, price stabilization was applied last month, and this month it has been removed. We are wondering why this flip-flop. What is happening? Maybe that one can also be addressed. I don't know whether by Kipto or yourself.
Chair, you do recall that if we go historical, for us to appreciate why government has really supported the economy through subsidy, and which is not obtaining today because it's agreed subsidy is not the way to grow a country. Between June last year or April last year to April this year, the subsidy went to a high of 161 billion Kenya shillings. 160? 169. 169 billion Kenya shillings. That is how much we spend to subsidize petroleum prices in times of going up. Of course, when it went down, it was a gain for us. But it never seemed to have gone down from the time Ukraine, Russia, and post-COVID with the challenges of unavailability of dollars and the strengthening of the monetary policy. Chair, the subsidy, like I did, the stabilization fund, like I explained, was a fund which is levied. It is not a tax, it is a levy, which is collected on kerosene, 5.4 shillings, collected on diesel and PMS, that's super and diesel, at 5.4, and raises approximately 2.5 billion every month. By the close of the year, financial year, the subsidy account, which had not been compensated to the oil marketing companies, stood at 42 billion. It stood at 42 billion. In the budget, there was 20 billion that had been provided in the supplementary budget in the previous year, and that was extinguished. The balance of another 24 billion was paid to sustain the oil marketing companies who were almost closing down. And what happened, the Treasury did use the future earnings on the stabilization fund to liquidate or to pay off the balance, so that the subsidy account today is at zero. All the oil marketing companies were paid off. The full amount of 169 billion has been fully extinguished. Unfortunately, part of the extinguishing of the 24 billion, 29, to be quite accurate, 29 billion, they use the future collection on the stabilization account to pay for the balance to ensure that the oil marketing companies do not have to close down. And so, as we speak today, we are the future, which could be helping us in times like this. And it is alive, the last communication from my office to my colleague. We need a meeting to see whether we should not secure the stabilization fund and use it in times like this, because the inflation is going to go much, much higher on food, on transport. It's a big driver. Petroleum pricing is a great inflation driver. So we'll be looking at whether the stabilization fund could be expensed, and we need to understand that from a budgetary perspective, or we need to secure it and continue using it every month for the purpose for which it was intended, as opposed to being used to expense what was otherwise crystallized as a subsidy, the part of the 169 and the balance of 29, which I talked about. So, Chair, so the account on the stabilization fund is being expensed on account of a borrowing into the future to pay what was expensed in the past. So we have the facts, we are working on it. We think we need to get the support of the National Treasury to ensure that our stabilization fund is returned where it should be, and therefore we should be able to use it to basically support this. But more importantly, Chairman, if we had that stabilization fund of about 2.5 billion, and what I did mention in discounts of $30 for AGO and $10 for PMS, which will be another about 7 shillings discount on account of F&B, freight and premium, we should be able to manage the rising cost of petroleum products in the next 3-4 months, or at least reduce it so that they do not rise by the crazy numbers we've seen yesterday. But, Chair, we did go before the media yesterday. We addressed Kenyans. We explained the numbers, how kerosene has moved from 600 to 900. In fact, these are not the highest. In the U.S., they are paying, what we are paying at 200 today, they are paying 354. they have gone off completely. And I think leadership, as government, as parliament, will need to really talk to this subject and see what kind of intervention, because it's a serious issue in terms of cost of inflation and cost of the economy, cost of doing business. Could you allow me to talk to a few numbers in less than 1 or 2 minutes, just for us to appreciate how the evolution on this pricing has gone up? Bwana Kipto, thank you.
Kipto, just try to summarize within the next, at most 3 minutes, because, Kipto to summarize, then you want to prosecute
Chair,
before?
I have the mic.
Okay.
Thank you. There's something that the CS is missing, and it was from Honorable Mawade. I'm equally interested to know, is it 1 year or 1 year, 1 month since you took an oath to serve the country? What was the cost of fuel that we are talking about now when you took an oath to serve this country? And what is the cost of fuel now? Because there are discrepancies, there are wrong figures, and there is everything outside there. Can you kindly, maybe in a second, explain? Thank you.
Honorable Dege?
When you listen to the CS today, and the CS we met in Panari, there are some facts which you need to accept. G2G is a flop. Because when you made presentation to us, the assurance was that the exchange of dollar, if I quote you correctly, we were expecting it to exchange at 120. The way you made us to believe by then. So sticking to G2G, we are denying Kenyans business for nothing. Let us go free, allow Kenyans to do business, regulate them. Be there as a minister, ensure there is a fair practice, but going G2G, we are tying your hands for nothing, and we are denying Kenyans opportunity to do business. Let us allow people to do business. Number two, we Kenyans are highly taxed, and we can't compare our pricing with our neighbors, and we know very well those people who are working in Kenya and all those who are investing in Kenya, we have a number of hidden tax. We pay tax to make our people live better. Don't run away from subsidy. What money you are paying in subsidy is tax I'm paying to relieve Kenyans outside there. Let us bite the bullet, allow Kenyans to live out of the tax I'm paying. Thank you, Waziri.
Kipto, maybe like I said.
That, Chair, I want to confirm that G2G is working. G2G is working, and we have the numbers. I think this is a question that could be better answered by the National Treasury, like I said. That could be better answered by the central bank. In terms of macroeconomics, G2G is working. I've talked to discounting up to 30% that we're able to get in freight and premiums. I've talked to really structuring the interbanks. I've talked to delaying and structuring the market in the way we pay because we collect in Kenya shillings today. And I wonder where we'd be today if between April and today would have had to pay some $4 billion for the petroleum products which have come into Kenya. So these are numbers issue, Chairman. I would like out of this session to spend time with Tom and show him some of the numbers. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, maybe Kipto, before Kipto comes on board. Waziri, what mitigation measures do you have in place as a ministry to cushion Kenyans against these fuel price increments that we are being warned will be every month up to February by a colleague of yours?
Chair, I did, maybe to be more specific, we negotiated for those discounts, but they did not impact on the pricing for the month of August, September. They have started kicking in, so we should be able to see some benefits going forward. We wish we should have negotiated earlier because we saw the prices going up. So the $30 discounting on every 1,000 liters The $10 on PMS is kicked in already. Secondly, I did say there's a very active conversation between myself and my colleague at the National Treasury to ensure that the stabilization fund, which is a legitimate fund for managing the highs of the fuel pricing as a levy, because it's a levy, that fund does not go to the consolidated fund. It sits as a fund to manage two things: the development of the petroleum infrastructure and managing the hikes in petroleum. I think as soon as we sort out that, we should be able to see some relief. Thank you.
In your estimation, Chair, when do we expect to see this reflected on the pump? Kenyans are watching and they want to get to know this.
The discounts that we secured, Chair, are already effective for the next cycle because we do price our products on M-1 and M for the after 14th. So the products coming into the country post for the next cycle will get that benefit of what we have just negotiated. But more importantly, if we can conclusively agree with the National Treasury to reinstate the stabilization fund and not to expense it the way it has been currently entered into the books, then we'll get an additional 2.5 billion that can go for that purpose and then therefore relieve the pain that we all face as a country. Thank you.
Kipto.
Thank you, Chair and honourable members. I think I will just speak to maybe three issues. I think first is, I think the substantive chair had spoken to an issue around our legal basis for setting pump prices. I just wish to state to you, honourable members, that in exercise of this mandate, we are guided by the law, the Energy Act, the Petroleum Act, and the attendant regulations. We do compute prices on the basis of an average of the landed cost coming into the country between the 10th of the month to the 9th of the next month. We take an average of the landed cost of the petroleum products in that country. I wish to state that there are three price components that go into the pump price that we do pay, all of us as Kenyans, including us who work at EPRA. One is the landed cost. The product itself is an international, globally traded commodity. We don't have the power over the product other than for the freight and premium, as Waziri has spoken to, which we've managed to negotiate downwards. The other are the transportation and storage costs. These are the pipeline costs, the cost with respect to storage, and the margins. These are the wholesale and retail margins to the oil marketing companies. I wish to notify this Honourable House that we as a regulator are in the course of conducting a cost of service study to allow us then to identify all the cost components. The other is really also not within our gift, but within the gift of this House. These are the taxes and levies that are levied upon petroleum products. So those are the three components, Chair, that are applicable to the pump price. Chair, you did ask a question as to what has led to this spike. Over the last 3 months, we have seen a spike in the landed cost of petroleum products. As I said, this is an international global traded commodity which is not within our mandate. One, we have seen the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, cut production by about 3.6 million barrels, which is about 3.6% of the global demand. This was caused a supply and demand imbalance driving prices up globally. We've also seen the continuation of the conflict we've seen in Russia and Ukraine continuing to drive up prices as well on account of lower supply. We've also seen a demand, and this is a cyclical event on an annual basis. As we come out of the summer and start going into winter, you start seeing stockpiling of heating oils. Because of the unavailability of natural gas for purposes of heating, you start seeing particularly the prices of diesel and kerosene, heavy fuel oil that are used as a substitute for fueling, for heating rather homes, starting to go up in readiness for the winter season. We also saw over the last 3 months refineries shut down, one on account of scheduled maintenance, and also two on account of very high temperatures in the global north, particularly on account of climate change. And because we are dealing with hydrocarbons and from a health and safety standpoint, some of those refineries had to shut down. Those are the factors that have led to the prices rising at a global scale. Chair and honourable members, we have seen, and as Waziri has said, we plan on an M-1 basis. The product that lands in the country in this month of September will be priced in the next month. So I think to the question as to the prediction that has been seen, and we did have an engagement yesterday with the members of the public as to what is the outlook over the next 3 months going forward. We have seen June, July, and August, for instance, the prices of super petrol landed in Kenya going up from $691.76 per metric ton to $776.69 in August. But we have seen Platts, which is on the month average, go up for super petrol from $818 a metric ton to $947 a metric ton. For diesel, the Platts price has jumped in June from $636 in June to $853 in August. We have also seen a jump of kerosene from $692.39 in June to $903.25 in July. Honourable Mandazi has also asked a question: how do we compare this to where we were last year at the same time? The prices that were applicable at the time in the pricing month of September to October 2022, we were paying at the pump $179 shillings and 30 cents for super, 185 shillings and 82 cents for diesel, 174 shillings and 19 cents for kerosene. But what is important to note is that the mean exchange rate that we did apply at the time a year ago was $120.64. For purposes of pricing, this cycle that we did begin today, we have applied 148 shillings. On average, we import about 550 million litres. About 60-65% of that is what we consume locally. So the movement of 1 shilling, in terms of 1 shilling to the dollar, is an additional 300 to 350 million shillings that will be passed on to consumers at the pump. I think that is an important point to make, Chair and honourable members. So in my view, Chair, I think one is that the spike is a global spike. It is a spike that has been seen across the globe. Further, we have seen this happen in our region. Our counterpart in Tanzania did release their pump prices last week on the 6th. They do it bi-weekly. They did increase prices as we did yesterday as a regulator. They do have another review next week. And as Waziri has said, looking at the freight and premiums in the competing corridor, we as a country continue to be very competitive with respect to pricing. In terms of the G2G, I think there has been a question as to, and this has been reported also in the media, as to an import bill that is coming up for payment in the course of this month. I wish to confirm to this Honourable House that we as a regulator sit and superintend over a committee and the G2G arrangement called a Treasury Risk Management Committee, where we do meet every Wednesday to mitigate the risks. And for the vessel, the first vessel under the G2G arrangement will be falling due on the 25th. I wish to confirm to this Honourable House that we have closed 5 of the cargoes. All the cargoes in the month of September and October, we've been able to convert all the shilling to dollar without having to approach the market, working with the nominated OMCs and working with our counterpart regulator in the financial services sector, the Central Bank, the National Treasury, and our parent ministry, to ensure that we are able then to unwind the shilling and be able then to pass on that benefit and ensure the LC is not called. So I just wanted to make that point in terms of the G2G arrangement. And as to whether this has been beneficial to the economy, taking out a third of the demand of FX and even speaking to our licensees, the oil marketing companies, where they used to approach the market, all of them seeking for the dollars. Today we sit every Wednesday as a sector under our supervision, able to sit and look at the dollar demand as one sector and be able to approach the market in a coordinated manner. That has allowed the other dollars to be freed up to other sectors of the economy to allow the country to do what it must. So I think those are some of the benefits in terms of G2G. I think a question we are not asking ourselves is if the petroleum sector, because the petroleum sector was solving for a macroeconomic problem, if the petroleum sector did not do what it did, where would we be? I think that's a fundamental question that we would wish the committee to consider and we wish Kenyans to consider as well. In terms of how we compare, as at yesterday we did release a press release in terms of comparator as to where we are as compared to our neighbours in the region and also further afield as far as South Africa and also in the West. I may not want to go into the numbers as to how we compare as at yesterday. We'll be able to review those numbers and share with you. And I just want to finish, Chair and honourable members, by saying that I think the question, and I believe the month before last, the government, through the Cabinet Secretary and the Executive, applied a stabilization program of 169 million shillings to cushion diesel, and this was in a bid to ensure that Kenyans, particularly in the agricultural sector, were not impacted. Last cycle, there was another 1.8 billion shillings that was applied to stabilize prices. And I think this was the debate that was, at the time, are subsidies back? And the response at the time was that subsidies were not back. This was stabilization. As the Cabinet Secretary has said, the Petroleum Development Levy, which is, amongst other functions, is to stabilize pump prices collected on average between 2.2 to 2.5 billion shillings a month. At the time that the 1.8 billion stabilization was applied in the last pricing cycle, the fund held about 3.5 billion shillings. The input from our computation as the regulator, if we were to hold prices in the cycle that we began today, it would require the economy to fork out upwards of 8.6, 8.7 billion shillings. And looking at the forward curve, Chair and Honourable Members, noting that we price on an M-1 basis, if you look at the trend, we already know the trajectory where we are going next month and the month after. And I think this goes to the question that Honourable Chair asked around the market being able to calculate, and also others in the private sector and also within government being able to see where their forward curve is going to. I think that is the reason why we need to ask ourselves if we are going outside the basket of the Petroleum Development Levy and dipping into the exchequer. Is it sustainable, recognizing where we've come from as an economy, having spent over 160 billion shillings to stabilize and subsidize prices in the past year? Chair, I submit.
Thank you. And Waziri, from that explanation, can you assure Kenyans that they are going to experience fuel reduction or reduction in the prices during the next cycle?
Chair, to the extent that we've gotten the discounts of up to $30 on freight and premium for diesel, AGO, that will lessen the pain because the flat pricing of the product is an international OPEC pricing that we really don't have much control about, like Kipto has explained. But we'll continue to work to make sure that whereas the pain on petroleum will drive inflation up, we will seek to see how we can reestablish the stabilization fund, which is really something that if we have the stabilization and the $30 discount on AGO and $10 on PMS, suddenly the pain will be lessened. It will possibly be halved. And therefore, to a very good extent, and that's why I say through you, Chair, to Tom, that when we look at the numbers, and if you see Tanzania today, for a premium, freight and premium where we are paying $90, they are paying $270, 3 times. An equivalent alone on freight and premium of about 27 shillings at the pump when we are paying about 9 shillings. If you do a literal conversion to 1,000 liters per metric ton. So, Chair, we'll continue to pay attention to this because it's not just about fuel pricing, it's about the total inflation in the country. And I'm sure my colleague at the National Treasury will entertain a lot of our argument to make sure that we ensure that the stabilization fund is available to support the discounts that we are getting on freight and premium. So, Chair, we are on top of it, and I can.
Thank you, Waziri. Maybe, Kipto, you'll give us, through our clerk, that presentation, a copy of that, yeah? Okay. And Waziri, our substantive chair will communicate on, will give further directions. Otherwise, I want to thank you very much for taking your time to be with us from morning, and we'll get back to you. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.